Today I wanted to do something a little different. Well, I'm always trying out something different, aren't I? I just thought to myself that it would be fun to pull out my favorite horror films and just tell you about them. Simple as that. No script, just me and my movies. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about what horror means to me because recently my fiance, she gifted me this horror collection in books, and I'm not even much of a reader. But the fact of the matter is, she just thought that, since I'm always watching horror movies, I'm quoting her, she felt that I needed to, dive into to his reading. So yeah, she said that I'm always watching horror movies, and I just thought to myself, am I really? Well, I mean, I'm watching some, I love some campy horror, some old school B movies, and I watch Tales from the Crypt. But then there are some of these classics that have stayed with me for such a long time that I always keep revisiting, and that means something to me. But I'm not much into modern horror. I don't like these sort of jump scary. I just kind of relate to that as some young teenage girl sleepover watching, and that's just never been my cup of tea. Yeah, I just wanted to pull out these films that mean something to me in the horror genre. I guess you will get to know my taste in that a little bit as we go along the way. But I'm gonna tell you first, my first experience with something that really terrified me. This is gonna be weird. I was 9 years old, and I went to see the first Harry Potter film. And you're probably right now like,
what?
I expected some fun wizard, cuddly thing, I suppose. But then all of a sudden, a screaming head came out of a book that he was reading, and I was like, wait a minute, what's this? But then later, he faces Voldemort, but he's this head in the back of another guy's face, and that scene, it traumatized me for so long. I remember later that evening, I was at my grandma's house, and someone was knocking on the door, and I was running down the stairs to open the door, and I just I struggled with doing it, and then it just kept on terrifying me, in a way. This just seemed just really the first sort of horror experience that I had. I know it's weird, right? But then shortly after that, I watched a film called Nemo in Slumberland, a really weird sort of animated kids film. But it's not really a kids film though. I mean, it's pretty dark. It has a real twist because I had seen this film maybe like 20 minutes of it every now and then. The first 20 minutes of it, that is, when I was a kid. I never got to the part with that terrifying big black goo until much later. And I was like, wow, it's just such a twist. I was not expecting that in this film. And then there's a battle later on with this like big sort of demonic creature, and so that was also pretty like, wow, what am I watching here? Anyways, so that imagine those things were my introduction into some horror, but that's just how it is. Now, let's just kick off with a list. So we're doing a top 10, because people love top 10, don't they? So my top 10 favorite horror films. Now, coming in at number 10 is going to be Arachnophobia. And you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, we're starting off with some B movie horror. Yeah, we are doing that a little bit, but it's a film about spiders, and I've always been fascinating about some horror films or whatnot with big gigantic spiders. But this is not one of those. This is one of these films with normal sized spiders. Well, it's a normal sized spider that they. The film starts off in the Amazon, and a group of people are exploring things in the Amazon or whatnot, and they meet this big gigantic spider, and wait a minute, and that big gigantic spider somehow gets into a fight with a bird, and takes off into the air, and wait a minute, wow, and goes into this little town, and breeds with another spider. And these little spiders go all around town, causing trouble, causing mayhem, you see. Wow, what a film. How could you not love that? So films like this, and I remember seeing this in the cinema. It freaks. I really like this one as well. I mean, it could be here, as well. But I mean, oh wow, it's so gooey. It's just like kind of like too much sometimes. But I mean, it's paying homage to these sort of B movie films from the '50s. So I also really enjoy that. And I really, like I said, I have so much enjoy for these sort of films that I ordered this one when it came out, Giant Spider Invasion. It was just like too weird, and I don't even know what I just watched. But this release has Giant Spider Invasion, the musical. Yeah, there's a comic. I mean, really went out with these special features. But this is sort of the weirdest spider film that I ever saw, no doubt. So yeah, I mean, what can I say? Let's keep on going, shall we? So moving into another thing that fascinates me is sort of these haunted house films, like the classic haunted house films. I like so many of those. For example, Haunting, Legend of Hell House, the Old Dark House is fantastic. But I thought I would give the nod to an Icelandic film, actually pretty modern. This is the youngest film on the list, keep that in mind, from 2017. I Remember You, eða Ég man þig, based on a book. And the reason this is in my list is because it feels sort of like this classic Icelandic horror tale. And it's done in such a great way in this film. Greatly acted, great atmosphere. It's about this young boy that goes missing. And it intertwines with another story from back in the days when a young boy had gone missing. And it takes place in this abandoned house in sort of in the middle of nowhere in Iceland. Intertwines back and forth in the timeline, and it's really sort of eerie. It's a very eerie sort of ghost film, and goes under your skin. So I mean, Icelandic Psycho, talking about an Icelandic film that you, my subscribers, should check out. So again, we go into sort of another horror genre that really interests me. A genre about cars. My favorite of them being Christine. So I'm a fan of these sort of car thrillers, sort of vibes like The Car, which is an awesome B movie from 1977, and Jewel, which is like more of a thriller. But those kind of films fascinate me. But this is the king of those sort of films, Christine, based on a story by Stephen King. See what I just did there, right? Anyways, story about this cool-looking, old-school kind of car, and this young man gets obsessed by it. Buys it from this old, weird guy on a sort of like on a farm or something, and he gets really obsessed with this car and changes because of the car. If you're looking for a standard vehicle, then Christine isn't for you. In her vibrant hot rod red and cream, the wonderful new Christine that actually kills the competition, literally. What a film. Love it. Coming in at number 7, right? Yeah. It's Halloween. It's another John Carpenter film right here. And of course I'm talking about the original film. And it's sort of like a comfort zone horror film in a way. I mean, even though it is a horror film, it's something about just this town, and it immerses you in that way that you feel so calm in town of Haddonfield, until this raging lunatic comes on with a mask and starts killing people. But that's just, that happens a little bit later in the film. My introduction to this series was actually the Rob Zombie film, which I saw in theater when it came out. So I was surprised when I saw this film. It doesn't have any backstory. It's just this young, cute boy that just, killed his family out of the blue. And then, of course, Don Pleasence comes in as a psychiatrist. And the music, the score, the atmosphere, the cinematography, the editing, everything in this film really comes together. It's just like a book on how to make these sort of films. In this film, what can I say? It's perfect. And then of course I figured out that there were so many of these films, and I just had to watch them all. I have lots of fun with some of these films. Season of the Witch. I really like Season of the Witch. An underrated sequel, right? But it has gotten sort of this cult following, so that's why I didn't include it in the underrated sequel video of mine. But it still sort of is in a way. fantastic little film. I mean, I enjoy most of these, you know, for what it is. The fourth one is great. Yeah. So we're coming in at number 6. Am I right? Yeah. Another genre. We're always going into sort of another genre, which also tells you something about me and what I like, and so we're getting to know each other. You know, I want to get to know you as well. You know, let me know down in the comment section your 10 favorite horror films, right? So you know, I mean, let's not have this one-sided conversation. Yeah, because this is not a commentary on a film as you're watching. It's me. It's Icelandic Psycho, your friendly neighborhood. Okay. Anyways, so now coming in number 6 is well, I really like the vampire movies, but mostly just the ones about Dracula, right? From Dusk Till Dawn is something that I could have included in this list, but that's also sort of, you know, this B movie, but it caught me off guard. I did not expect that when I was watching it when I was 15 years old. Anyway, so we have a tie here. Horror of Dracula with Christopher Lee, Nosferatu from 1922, and then basically so many of Dracula films, obviously, because that's just something, you know, that's a video for another day. Let's first talk about Nosferatu. This is one of these films that I saw in the film studies back in the days, and I just couldn't believe then that such an epic film was made in 1922. It's really eerie. It has an atmosphere like no other, and there's a story going on about this guy, which I'm sure you might have heard. That the guy that plays Nosferatu, there was this myth going on that he was the real Nosferatu in real life, you know, because he was so terrifying. Now, this film, obviously based on Dracula's novel, and this film got banned because he didn't have the rights to do this film. He didn't have the rights to copy the novel, you see. There's no film like this film. I want to go watch it right now because it's so special. It's such a big blueprint for these sort of films in cinema. You gotta love it. And then, of course, Horror of Dracula with Christopher Lee, the one that stands tallest in the Christopher Lee films. Christopher Lee was iconic and awesome as Dracula. And my most famous video on this channel is ranking his films. So go check that out and see what I have to say about it over there. And let's keep on going with this list. So now we are into a real classic here. Yeah, it's Psycho. Of course I'm gonna include Psycho. I really got obsessed with Psycho and seeing all of its, you know, sequels and Bates Motel, which I have somewhere over there, the series, which I've seen twice all through. And I rarely watch TV series because there's so many movies in so little time, but I've seen that twice. So I guess that should tell you something about my obsession with this character and this sort of like concept, this story. And Alfred Hitchcock made such an elegant tight thriller back in the 60s. That's the mother of all slashers. Norman Bates takes over the film when we're like halfway through the film. It's such a interesting way to make a film when we're following the main character for the first half, and then all of a sudden this character takes over the film, and it tells us, no, wait a minute, this film was always about him. We were just watching this journey of a woman going to this place just to show us what will happen to people that go to this place, and what might lead someone to go to this place in all of their innocence or not, you know. But you see what I'm saying. That's such a fantastic storytelling in a way. It was a really niche sort of way to tell a story back in the days, and I really loved this film. Earlier on in this video, I talked about this sort of haunted house films, but this film that I'm going to show you now is just in a league of its own. The best film that ever centered around something like that concept, but it's a little different because it takes place in a hotel. Yeah, it's The Shining. One of my favorite openings to a film ever is that scene. Jack Nicholson, he's really like over the top manic in this film. I never really felt that he was a sane sort of character, so it feels, that transition feels very easy, because insanity is like gravity. all it needs is a little push. So what he needed was to go back to this hotel that he supposedly took care of, in his other life. Yeah, that's at least that's how I interpret this film. Of course, if you have another way of interpreting it, please tell me down in the comment section below. But that's the way I interpret The Shining, is that this character, for some reason, is in a place that he was in his earlier life, interacting with this character that he used to interact with, and obviously just goes insane by that. Yeah, well, that's how I see it. But then there's so many things to explore in this film, and just the way that Kubrick makes this film and sets up this hotel, and everything is mirrored. Every frame and everything in the hotel is mirrored, the way that the set is set up. And I think Michael Bartlett put it really, really good. A YouTube channel that focuses on film as well. It feels like you've lived in this hotel. It feels like you've been there, sort of, because that's just how it makes you feel. The Shining. Here's Johnny. Number 3, The Thing. Another John Carpenter film. Yes. Yeah, I really like John Carpenter, obviously. The Thing is this sort of special film with special practical effects that still somehow do not get dated and still has the effect that it had back in the days. And the way that they start off the film is so clever, so fantastic. It sort of starts off in the middle with this helicopter following this dog, trying to kill it. And then we meet our main characters in this sort of station in the snow, and they're just like, oh, we need to kill this, shoot down this helicopter trying to kill this dog. What is wrong with these people? And then shortly afterwards, we get to know what was wrong with those people. Not so much. They were just trying to get rid of the thing. I always talk about atmosphere, but the atmosphere in this film is just a 10 out of 10. And the music is done by Ennio Morricone. And it takes the element from the original story of the shape-shifting. There's a film from the 50s about this like Frankenstein-y sort of character. I mean, it's a nice little film. But this one is really, really special. Out there in the snow, trying to survive this thing, which can morph into anyone, become anything. Fantastic film. So now we're into our top 2. Wow. My children, what should we do with you? So coming in at number 2 is another genre of films that really fascinate me in this sort of horror film genre. It's the original blockbuster. It's the mother of all shark films. It is Jaws. Like Jack Black said in The Holiday, 2 notes and you have a villain. And you have more than that here. You have Bruce, the shark. There's something about this film, the colors of this film, like the blue color in this film. It's also sort of like this adventure journey with these characters going on an adventure and just, classic adventure to try to catch this shark. My cousin showed me this film when I was 15 years old, and I just have loved it ever since. That is his favorite film. And for one of my subscriber here, from one of my greatest subscribers, PMC Midnight Movies, this is his favorite film as well. It's just so fantastic. And I've seen so many of the shark films since then. For example, here, an Italian film made in 1981, right? I think. Anyways, and it's sort of like Jaws 1 and 2 combined in one. Jaws 2 is actually a really underrated sequel, I think. So, yeah, shark horror films is a genre that I really enjoy. For example, Dangerous Animals, film that came out in 2025. One of the better films that I saw that year, of the few ones that I saw anyways. Yeah, and that was a sort of the shark thriller. A nice one, a nice Australian film. We're coming down to my favorite horror film. I asked my fiance what she thought if I were going to make a video like this. What would be my number 1? And I barely had finished the sentence when she said the film that is my number 1 here. And I agreed with her, because this is the film that I have obsessed over more than any other horror film in my lifetime. And that is The Fly. My uncle told me about this film. He saw it in the cinema. The concept just hooked me straight away, that there was a film about this sort of concept, and I just knew I had to see it. And then of course I had to see the original and every other film in the series, obviously. And the reason that I really love this is the first half of this film. It's sort of like a love story, a story about this, you know, scientist that falls in love and is doing his experiments. But then the second half is about him morphing into something else. And it's really, really haunting. And when this film is over, I just feel so devastated and just sort of like, you know, I just, it takes so much out of me. This is a real experience, and it's hard to watch, but it's hard not to watch, because once you start, you can't stop, because it's a really gripping experience of a film. At least it is for me, no doubt. The Fly is a true Cronenberg masterpiece. Cronenberg, you know, interesting director. I met him once, actually. I got an autograph for him on my old DVD. Seems I lost it. Can you imagine that? And the score in this film, it also elevates the experience and keeps the haunting and hauntingness of it just moving on. And it's so interesting the way that they play it. The same score gets different, of course, whilst the film gets different. When the lovers, Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum, meet again and he's turning into this creature, we have this love theme, but the love theme is different because things are different. Just what a film, what an experience of a film. Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis, they also really elevated this story with their acting and their chemistry. So this is a film about a man doing experiments, and a fly gets into the experiments because he's doing this transformation pods where one thing goes from one pod to another, and he really wants to try it on himself. So he goes into one of these pods once he believes that the pods are good enough to transform human beings. You know, he's been trying to do that, and that is of course something that he really wants to do because he's, you know, this genius scientist. And so he goes from one pod to another, and it's successful. But a housefly got into the transmitter pod with me that first time when he was alone. And the transmitter pod didn't know what to do with it, what to make of it. So he DNA spliced them together. So he slowly becomes this creature. And this is really sort of this Shakespearean story that I just really, really love. And it's haunting, it's really draining. Once the film is over, it really drains me, and I'm just, wow. This was fun. You know, sharing the enthusiasm with you guys. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like my content, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already.